afternoon, good evening, good metal. My name's Coop and welcome to the Spoken Metal Show. This is a fun one with my friend David Robinson, a vocalist. Been doing singing in cover bands and in bands for many, many years. And it seemed only fitting that every time I sit down and I speak to other people who've been in bands, we talk about the first kind of band experiences and the first names of bands they were in and how good or bad or indifferent they are. So it only seemed fair that I go back and look at some of my first experiences as being in a band as a guitar player and what have you, and forming a band, and some of the early challenges that we encountered then. And Dave's the perfect guy to talk to this about as a frontman and vocalist as well. Really great sense of humour. We've known each other a long, long time. A lot of laughs. Really enjoyed this show. Hope you do too. This is David Robinson.
So it's a really nice treat on this one, because I'm not interviewing someone with any talent whatsoever or involved in the music. No, I'm joking. I'm finally sitting down with someone who a lot of people have asked to come on the show. That's not true. No one's asked to speak to this person. No one's asked me. No, loads of people have said,
"Why don't you anybody?" To be honest, I've got no friends.
Why don't you speak to some people from your life, like some of your other friends? And I was like, okay. So, and this gentleman's name came up a few times, and we were like, okay, should probably set it up. And just to give a little quick backstory, I've done an intro, but we were meant to do this yesterday, and we ended up just talking for 2.5 hours pre-podcast, just catching up. So it's really nice. It's a nice treat for me. It's a nice treat, hopefully, for you, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce finally on the Spoken Metal Show, David Robinson. Like Dave, I fucking hell. I told Dave it's not a video one, even though it's an audio one. So when I say welcome to the show, he just waves.
I know. I just thought I'd do it just to fuck with you, like just.
So it's about time. I've probably got Dave on because I'm always like talking about other people's first bands and other people's first sort of gigs and stuff like that, and I never talk about my own ever. So it's probably
with good reason.
With good reason, because you're fucking awful. Dave, welcome to the show. Fucking hell, man! It sounds like it's cool to have some of my older friends on there. Like I've known Dave for a long time. Davey Scrobber, as I know him, like long time. Yeah. First band.
What time you got me on here, like?
Yeah, well, yeah.
He's like, he's run out of all the good guests now, and he just thought, you know what?
Yeah, they literally ran out of everybody we're fucking talking to. I put my cat on one show, and now it's finally Dave Robbo's turn.
But I'm honoured, just to still be asked, like. But no, cheers, man. It is good to be on here, like. Good to see you and hear you.
Yeah. So I don't know where. So normally I start these things where it's like, what was the first music you heard and all that type of thing, and it seems like the wrong way to go with this. I don't know. I mean, when did we first met then? We were both working in a popular high street retail store that sells food. It's not called Sainsbury's.
Yeah, other shops are available.
We were like teenagers then, weren't we? I was like teenager. Yeah, I was like 19 something.
I think we would have been probably 9. Yeah, I think you would have been 20, I would have been 19, because we're about 10 months apart, aren't we? So, about 20, what's that, 20, about 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so last week we met, and but yes, we met at like,
24 years
that's
ago.
when we were all working, and fucking hell, we all got on before we decided we wanted to do band things. Like, I remember am I remembering the story correctly? Do I remember us going out drinking, as we would often do back in the day during the week and weekdays, and you would go out on your dinner and get drunk as well? I remember doing that. But
yeah, work was never happy about that. Like, but,
did you go out drinking once and were hungover, and the next day did you make a bed up out of the toilet rolls and stuff on one of the racking and sleep on it? Is that true?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Wow, I'd forgotten about that. Like, I think that was. Yeah, we were. It was the original band. Well, it was you, me, Mark, and Dave. We'd done a gig in the old Stairways in Birkenhead. I'm sure many of your listeners will remember Stairways. Like
Stairways, yeah.
Stairways. We did a gig in there, and we all got. We had a few too many, and I remember the next day. I slept pretty much the whole day up on the racking. I made a bed out. I made a bed out of toilet rolls.
I tell that story. Yeah, I tell that story to people, and I always think to myself, have I embellished that? Have I remembered it wrong? But what happened, if I remember rightly, is I was in later than you. You were in earlier. You used to run like booze. You used to do the booze and stuff. It's just fucking mental when you think about it. You used to do the booze stuff and all that. And then I remember coming in. You'd already been in, and I was in later. And I remember asking everyone, I was like, where's Dave? Like, where's he gone? And everyone was like, oh, he's upstairs. And we went upstairs, and you look around, there's big high racking everywhere. And I was like, Dave, and there's nothing. And I was like, he's not here. He's definitely, I saw him come in. I said, he's upstairs. And after, like, just searching for you. When they put the racking in the supermarket upstairs, obviously they put the light stuff at the top, the heavy stuff at the bottom, obviously. And so that naturally at the very top is like kitchen rolls and toilet rolls and things like that. And David made like a bed. I was just sleeping. I wouldn't have got that story right, like, but I'm glad I did, like, because it's fucking one of those things. But I think, I don't know who approached who first when we started the band. I don't know who approached who first. Do you remember?
Do you know what? I can remember the exact story like it was yesterday.
It was,
yeah, literally. Well, you know what I'm like? I'm like an elephant, and I never forget anything, details. I can remember it as clear as it was yesterday. I was in the, do you remember in the back room, there was like a big, I think they used to call it the baler.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Baler, the cardboard and all that sort of stuff. And I was in there, and I was just minding my own business, and I distinctly remember I was singing The Drugs Don't Work by The Verve.
Well, that dates it then, yeah.
At the top, and the next thing, I sort of stopped. I thought, it was like on Sunday afternoon, I thought there was like no one there, and I turned around, and Steve, who was our original, the original bass player, Johnson, was just standing behind me, and I remember he just went, hey, and just started clapping, and I was just like, what? And he goes, and he said, like, basically, do you want to come and try out for the band? And I was like, what? I didn't even know there was a band. Yeah. And I was like, and at that time, obviously, nothing like that had ever crossed my mind before, so I was like, yeah, okay. And then, I don't remember the first Sunday I was meant to come, it was arranged, and I couldn't make it for some reason. I think it was something because of work. And then I came the next week, and I had one jam with you guys, and that was it. It was after I remember we did the first song. I think the first song we ever did was Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Okay.
And then we did Some Might Say, and I'm not sure what the third one was. I think it could have been Paranoid, Black Sabbath. And we did like the 3 songs, and then I think it was you who just said, yeah, you're in. And I was just like, all right, is that it? You're like, yes, so you got to come next week.
I can't remember how I formed. I think I did form the band, but I don't know who I got in first, if it was Evo or if it was Steve, or it was, I can't remember the inception of it, like, but I don't think it was.
I remember before I was in the, I'm remembering stuff here before I was even in the band. How is that possible? What's going on there? Like, there was a guy, Ian Hornby.
Yeah.
He sang with you, I think, for one jam.
Yeah.
And then you had on rhythm guitar, was it Barry?
Yeah.
I think
we were so bad, right, just so you know. We were so bad, and I had no idea how to play with other musicians. No idea at all about, like, letting other people breathe and finding space and sonically balancing it all out and all that type of stuff that you're meant to know when you're a musician.
I know all that stuff, yeah.
I just turned the amp up as loud as I could possibly get it and played and hoped everybody followed me. And when Ian tried out for the band, and he was a great singer, and he did, I think it was the Doors, Roadhouse Blues, I think he kind of auditioned with. And it was so loud, and so, like, no one gave a fuck about anybody else's playing. He got his bollock out just to see if anybody would even notice that he had his bollock out.
Yeah, he did that to me as well.
And he was singing around. It was what a character Ian was. And he was singing wrong lines and stuff just to see if anybody noticed. And we didn't, because we weren't listening to each other as musicians. Fucking hell. It was awful. We played in this, like, loft. And I had a really shitty little amp that I have that's just there. Still have that amp and a shitty guitar. And we just made a racket. It was awful. Like, it was awful. And we went through, like, a number of people to kind of, like... And it was basically whoever put up with us. I think you could have auditioned and been shite. You weren't shite, as I remember. You could carry a tune. But I remember thinking, even if he isn't shite, I just needed to get like 4 people in a room. What I constituted making up a band. I just needed to get 4 people in a room. But fortunately, you were actually like, you could sing. You could actually sing. And I remember like most bands now practice together a long time before they do their first show, and we didn't do any of that. We practiced like once every Sunday, which is criminal when you think about it, the amount of practice we should have been doing. And we'd practice once like every Sunday, I think, or whatever it was.
Every Sunday at 4 o'clock.
Get told to turn down regularly because we had no idea of sound, no idea of like you balance the sound with the drums and the bass and stuff, and everything's meant to be laid. We were like, fuck that. Everybody just needs to play as loud as they can. It was awful, wasn't it? Like, yeah. That was a crazy time.
What was the guy, wasn't it Barry? What was his second name? He was the...
Colin.
Was it Keown? Keown, I think it was.
It might be. But he tried out, and he was like quite a developed musician. So instantly we were like, well, we can't have this. And he was suggesting good things and clever ideas. So we were like,
you're out.
yeah, that was it. Like, if you were shit, welcome aboard. But no, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I was a terrible musician, like terrible guitar player. But I think the other guys were pretty good, like, coming from different ones. I was very much the metal guy. So I was kind of like, because I'm mouthy and loud, I was always kind of pushing the metal agenda. When Steve was more of a dance and alternative stuff, and Mark was more of the kind of almost pop type of stuff, and you were kind of like somewhere in the middle of that, like But I was always
pushing, was, to be honest.
I was pushing like the kind of the metal things and stuff. So I would come along with these half-baked arrangements of riffs. So like, this is the riff, that's it, that's the song, and we just play that riff a few times and maybe play it slower, and that was it. All these complicated bits that bands have now, we didn't do any of that. We were totally simple and all that. And in many ways, it was probably quite lovely that it was like that. It was very pure. We didn't think about what we were doing too much. We just kind of played and enjoyed it. There wasn't really much of a plan.
I think the thing was with the band as well was that, like, Mark had somewhere to for us to practice. Steve had an amp, you had the guitar, and I had a car.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was it, and he was just like, right, well, that's how bands are formed. Now off you go, It was crazy. And then we went like, I don't know, I mean, how long were we up in that little loft for before we moved to the church? As most bands play in the church now, like.
It seems like forever, but I think it was only actually about 2 years.
Yeah.
It was quite a while. I always think of it being like 5 or 6 years, but I think it was about 2 years altogether.
Yeah.
Up there, and then we eventually moved on to the church and stuff. But I must admit, I've got great memories of being in that jam room with you guys on the top floor and just belting out, like you said, as loud as we could and stuff. And it was just, and we were so high up, we couldn't, no one could hear us, so we could just be as loud as we wanted.
Yeah.
And it was just great days, wasn't it? Like, sounds a cliche, but it was like, it was just, it was amazing. Like,
do you remember like the first show we played? Do you remember that?
Yeah. The very first show was at the. It was the, do you know what, I'm trying to think what the hell it was called. It was the, what? Do you know what, I've still got the set list. Was it it was the Yarrow Park, wasn't it? I think it was the Yarrow Park.
Oh, yeah. So basically all the people that were worked with us in that retail store for our American friends, it was like a Walmart situation. Everybody that worked there, we were the only people in a band that they knew. Now you could throw a stone and everybody's in a band. But back then we were the only people in a band. So there was like someone somewhere suggested, well, hold on, they're all in a band. The Works Night Out is happening. Why don't we get them to play the Works Night Out, which is a fucking unbelievable idea. It reminded me of like, this, for our American friends will know this, maybe the UK friends won't. There's a wonderful YouTube video of someone having a party at Denny's, and they have a hardcore show at Denny's, like, which is like a kind of a break. And it spirited the song "What's Up, Denny's," because it's like guys like, "What the fuck's up, Denny's?" and they fucking throw it. And it was like that. We were trying to play like riffs and metal and stuff, and the people were there like just on a night out. They were like, "What the fuck is this?" We butchered like "With or Without You," didn't we, or something? Why did we play "With or Without You"? or something like that, or Creep. It might have been. I don't know.
I think we played both of them, but I think we were just kind of. I remember we didn't have much time to prepare, so we were learning songs like dead fast because the time between us getting asked and actually doing it was like I think a couple of months, and we were like so we were just learning anything as fast as we could. And I remember before we went on, like, you know, even then we were kind of just like, you know, we were totally unprepared for it. And you know what, I'm gonna totally backtrack, and I actually gave you some misinformation there.
Okay.
So I'm said I'm like an elephant and I never forget, and I don't. But that wasn't the first gig. That was the second gig.
Yeah.
I apologise. The first gig was the Swan.
Oh yeah.
The Swan, and that was and everyone, and that was probably the busiest night the Swan ever saw, because there was about 200 people in there. If you remember,
we all wanted to see, didn't it? And I don't remember being very good. But I remember breaking a string and the string hanging down. And whilst I was playing, someone coming up and going, "You've broke your string." it's like tar for that. It's like crashing your car. And someone coming up and going, "Do you know you've crashed your car?" It's like, fucking hell. I remember that's about all. I remember getting paid. I remember it's the first time we got paid. It wasn't very much, but I remember getting paid. I remember thinking, "Fucking hell, I am Bon Jovi now." That's literally how it works. That you get paid for a show, you're famous. And I remember that being like a big deal. Getting paid was a big deal then. It still is now. So like we
sitting outside and nearly throwing up with like nerves of being about to go on.
That was one thing I didn't have. And probably it's a bad thing in reflection, because it would have made me play better or learn stuff more. But I had so much bravado and so much like, just fuck you, I'm playing, and that's it. I just threw everything at it. Wasn't no fear at all. Absolutely no fear going into the shows. But I remember, like, I wish I'd had a little bit of fear and played and practiced more, you know, and become a better musician. Because we just were literally cobbling together amps and PAs and whatever work just to fucking get over the line. Nowadays, there's like a minimum requirement for shows, like that you must have a backline. We would do anything, you know. We would play like with anything we had. We had like fucking anything that made noise. There was none of this like, what amp are you using? It was like, what amp have you got? We would just fucking use whatever we had, you know. And it was like, we
just wanted to play.
Which was a beautiful thing in hindsight. There was a lot of arrogance of youth in that, like, you know. But it's like, it's weird because we kind of went, when we went, I don't know, which point did Steve leave then? When did that happen?
Yes, Steve was in the band for just a little over a year. And then we had a guy come in called Chris Hughes. He was with us for only about three or 4 months.
Well, to get another actual musician who could play and had talents. So there was nothing down for him. He was well going to be out the band as soon as he was coming in. Like.
Well, he left the band because he went on to join another band.
Yeah.
Who then I think split up only not long later. Yeah. And then we did our. But if you remember the guy that originally joined us, which is our still friend now, you know, Dave Kinder. Yeah. He saw us playing at the third gig we ever did with the Black Horse in Tranmere, which is now Flats. And he saw us there, but he joined about a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, after he originally saw us. It was quite a while after. So
we were either really shit or really good, because why would you join that band after seeing him? You know what I mean? There must have been a part of us like, I can make this band better, or these are really good. I probably lean to think on the former rather than the latter on that. Like, yeah.
Do you know, I don't know. I think sometimes we're probably. I think when you look back, I think you know, even though we were all kind of still getting to grips with what we were doing playing wise, we were still all just learning our trade, if you like. I think that the songs that we had, our songs, I mean, not the covers, the songs we had was what probably drew him in, and I think he'll probably tell you that, because of some of the songs we had. I just think we're really, really good, and a lot of that was, you know, down to you coming up with all the... For
me, things really kind of... Because that was one gear, and that most bands last around that and do that type of thing where they play pubs and that type of thing, and it works for them. And I think we had kind of aspirations that if it didn't work out, we'd become like a pub covers band and what have you. But I think for us, we made a bit of... I think, was it before or after Dave joined when we started playing in Manchester? Stuff like that. When was that?
Yeah, that was with Dave. Well, that was probably not that long after he joined. I'd say sort of 6 months, maybe a year after he joined.
There was a noticeable moment where we started to take things a bit more seriously, wasn't there? And we kind of like tried to up our game, if you will, and take it to the next level, as they say, and that type of thing. And we tried to. I think that was when we kind of went to Stairways. Stairways was quite integral to the band's life, I think.
We became practically the resident band in Stairways, if you remember.
I think so.
Practically every Thursday and most, at least 1 or 2 Saturdays a month, we must have done dozens of gigs in there.
Yeah.
And then because we sort of got to grips with what we were doing, we were getting quite a following. I remember we got a reporter came out for the local paper, and he took a photo and did an interview with us and all this sort of thing, and put it in the paper, and we thought, here we go, this is it. And then we got like the interest of a very small time record thing going on, didn't we? Yeah. And then we sort of spared us on, and that was when we ended up, we were venturing out to like
what it's like to people kind of maybe that aren't aware of this. This is pre-internet, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so that's one of the things I was going to come to. Like, I mean, everything we did was we didn't have any. There was for people now, or people just starting out in a band, metal bands or whatever. Like, there was nothing. Like, I remember, if it's just to tell the story really, but about the fly posting.
Yeah, you can tell a story. I was nearly arrested. I wasn't arrested. So what's the by the book? It doesn't matter. But
in fact, the story probably is worth telling, actually, because if you now people just stick on Facebook or like whatever they do, Instagram, we're doing this gig, blah blah blah. But we went round, me and Mark. This is for you, right? The benefit of your listeners. Me and Mark went round in my car, me driving with a bucket of wallpaper paste, a shitload of flyers, and we had a rule: we didn't fly post like on any like buildings, or it was only things like wood, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if there was like scrap wood or something where it was going to get taken down anyway.
Yeah.
And to like fly post on posters, which all the bands did. You tell that to someone now, and they're like, "What?"
It exists a little bit, but nowhere near. It was the only way you could tell someone else about your band. You had to kind of
go fly posting. You put it in your local paper, but that'd cost you like 30, 40 quid, which is a young band that no one had. So it was just like that. That was completely out the window. And we were lucky. We had a local magazine, didn't we? The Buzz magazine.
Yeah.
We had a few things in there, but it's like you say, this is all pre-internet.
A lot of this stuff was kind of like very DIY. The poster that we made was we made it, and you'd have to go out and you had to physically. I don't know how many bands would look at you just like crazy now. It's like no, don't post on Facebook. Post on a wall. What, on a wall on Reddit? No, on a physical wall. What? Yeah. Outside? Yeah. You had to do all this stuff, and it was then. I think we kind of started getting a little bit more serious. I think that's when I started writing a lot more and trying to write good songs and write good riffs and stuff. I tried like to kind of put that in play. But like Stairways was such a formative part of my life and the band's life as well. So at this point as well, we should probably say, which we haven't said yet, often when I talk to people who are in bands, we talk about the names of their first bands, and we have a little bit of a laugh about people's first names bands because a lot of them are awful. And we were originally called Cottonmouth. I don't know quite where they got it from. I think it was a Spider-Man baddie.
Spider-Man villain, wasn't it?
Yeah, called Cottonmouth. And we played with that name for ages. And then I changed it again to Engine, I think we called. Yeah, and then we found there was another band, far more talented, they were great, the other band, called Engine, so we couldn't have that name.
No, we kept the name for about 6 months, but we put a hyphen in the middle.
Yeah, because we were geniuses. And then we changed it to Inertia as well at one point. And
very briefly,
what's funny is one of my friends who's been on the show, Don Jackson, he's a photographer. Way back when, he used to look in the listings in a fucking newspaper to see bands when they were playing at various places, and we saw that there was another band called Inertia, and we were like, oh fucking hell, we can't call ourselves Inertia, because you had no way of checking if your band name was used. And that was his band. But anyway, we settled on Flag Smasher was the kind of the final form, if you will, and that was from a Spider-Man baddie as well.
Right, yeah.
And I often thought to myself, like, I often joke that the reason we weren't famous was because we had the name of a Spider-Man villain on it, because like Marvel would sue us now. Like that's the reason we weren't famous, because the name was shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Nothing to do with our playing, like.
Yeah, not to do with the fact that we were awful. And but yeah, Stairways was such an important part of my life. I met my wife at Stairways. You know what I mean? That's how important it was to me. But I remember, like, I can't remember many shows, but I know we played a lot there, a lot. Probably at the latter stages of its lifespan as well. Like, Stairways was huge at one point with really big bands playing it. And by the time we rolled around, it was kind of in its last sort of run, I think. You know, and so I remember the guy coming to interview us, and what had happened is we were playing a show, and he was going to meet us out or before or after or something. And what happened is we played the show, but there was no photographs, and the guy was doing the interview. I think his photographer turned up late or some shit.
That's right.
And everybody was coming out of the show, and it was a good show, as I remember. And everybody was coming out, and the guy was like, "Oh, we need a photo." And me, being fucking Johnny Big Bollocks, was like, "Right, everybody go back in. I don't own the club." All the bouncers were like, "What the fuck's going on?" I was like, "Everybody back in." And everybody came back in. So the photographer could come behind us and get a picture of us and the crowd and put it in the paper. And it was such a huge deal where I remember thinking to myself, fucking hell, that's felt like a huge deal, because, like I say, this is pre-internet, and to get your picture give you a comparison, to get your picture in the local paper was as big as getting, like, you know, a couple of thousand hits of a picture on Facebook or something like that. It was as important as that, like, you know.
It's probably bigger because you knew that paper was going to, like, every house pretty much. Well, where we live,
well, people read the papers, yeah.
It was a really big deal, but that just doesn't seem to happen anymore. Like, it's very rare. It was at
that point as well. We started to get fans, like actual fans, like people who knew what you sounded like and had seen you and would come to a show, and that was like. That was really strange to me, like really strange.
This is the time when we'd sort of done all our training. Now we were, you know, good. We had some kick-ass songs, and we were really started to, you know, sort of. I mean, when we used to do the Stairways gigs, and we used to really fill them, and we had a lot of, you know, fans and stuff. A lot of people did like us, and I think that was because we did become, you know, good. I mean, a lot of that was down to, obviously, our playing had developed, you know, tenfold, but just some of the songs we had. I remember, I can't even remember who coined this phrase, but I remember someone calling you the Riff Meister. I remember someone saying that, because we just had all these, like, huge riffs, and then we sort of built the song around them, didn't we? We wrote all these songs. You and me spent hours just writing songs and lyrics and blah, 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 blah. And we became good, and then, I don't know, it just sort of like, and it was at that time, wasn't it, when all the bands around were kind of like Limp Bizkit and all
there was a lot of new metal going on, Yeah,
and we were really going for it, but a lot of the venues at that time sort of just started closing down one by one, and I think that was the beginning of the end. I think it was, it got really hard to find places to play and stuff. You know, people now don't realise that at one point there was fucking nowhere. You know, there was nowhere, and now people say, "Oh, there's not a lot of places to play," but there is. There's way more than there was, and there's way more opportunity than there was when we were playing. Way more, to get your music out and to do more stuff. Like, you know, and like going back to that, like, we were getting people who would make their own T-shirts and make their own merch, if you will, and bring it to the show. You know, how often does that happen? Like, you know, to bands, they would create their own thing. The band wouldn't do it. Like, we didn't have any concept of merch and how to sell your band and branding and all that. We didn't have any concept at all. And these people were bringing us pictures that they'd hand drawn and stuff. Like, it was crazy. It's crazy. Well, the stuff that we did have, the limited amount of stuff we did have, to give out or sell or whatever. We made ourselves, because I mean, I remember, I don't know if bands will still do this, they just seem to go on the internet now and order like, you know, 1 billion of their own album, but I remember, you know, I'd sit there and just like for hours just making CDs, burning CDs, you know, taking like forever, and you'd be like doing artwork, but now it's just like, I don't know, just seem to give it to someone and say, oh, I want 500 of them, and it's like,
it's way easier now. Like the whole process is way easier, and there's a part of me that thinks that that's a good thing, obviously, but there's a part of me that thinks that how many bands would have survived if they'd had to have done some of the shit that we had to do. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember playing Stairways once, and everybody's sitting down. We started, and everybody sat down because as a protest to like they didn't like us or they didn't want us to be on or whatever, and they all sat down. And I remember thinking, oh shit, what do you do now? Like, you know, when your crowd's not on your side, you know. And then I remember just playing really, really hard, just playing, trying to play well and the best I could do. And then everybody slowly getting up and getting into it. And then there being a massive crowd of people giving it the beans, like, you know. And I just thought, fucking hell, that feels like a victory, you know.
I remember that gig. I think that I'm pretty sure that was the same gig where, because you and me were always quite, I think you and me both quite creative people, especially back then. And we came up with this bizarre idea. I don't know why. Where this came from. But we decided to get a sugar glass bottle. Yeah. And halfway through the gig, you and me were going to pretend to fall out on stage, have a fight. Yeah. And then you smashed me over the head with this bottle, which you did. Yeah. And I fell on the floor off the stage. I just like lay there on the floor for about 10 minutes while you lot were still playing. And then eventually I like got up and just like came back on the stage like all dazed, and then you and me like fist bumped and then just like carried on with the gig. We just had all these, that was like the tip of the iceberg, wasn't it? We just had all these like mad ideas, which were great to look back on. I've got that on video somewhere. Who knows if it'll find its way onto YouTube.
You got the bottle. I don't know whose idea it was. I guess it doesn't matter. But we got the bottle from an actor's stagecraft shop that sells like glass and sugar glass and shit. And when you got it, you pulled it out. I remember it looking like massive and not like any bottle I'd ever seen. And I was like, that's not going to work. So we had to like we put it on one of the amps with loads of other bottles of bud and stuff and around it, so people wouldn't notice the subterfuge. And I remember thinking, in the heat of when I'm playing and the expectation is to get this bottle and hit you in the head, I'll pick up the wrong fucking bottle.
That's it. I remember going through it with you, saying pick the right bottle.
And then I hit you with the bottle and you go off the stage and you proper sold it, like, proper took the bump, and you're like lying complete. And I genuinely think people thought you were fucking clobbered. And it was weird because the only thing we didn't, when we were planning it, we planned it really detailed up until the point I hit you with the bottle, and then we didn't have a plan after that. Yeah, because then we thought it was great. This is a great idea. Let's just do this. Not thinking about doing the rest of the set and what's going to be just. So I hit you with the bottle. You fall off the stage and a line in a heap, and I was thinking to myself, is he going to stay there? Who's introducing the next song? How many songs have we got left to play? Yeah.
10 minutes, just like proper milking it, and you were just carrying on. And it was just like, there was people just like not knowing what the hell was going on.
Well, why the fuck we did stuff like that? I remember at one show, being all fucking power to the people and all that type of thing that I was into, and you know, and all that type of thing. I remember saying, is anybody here in a band? And someone put their hand up and I threw out a packet of strings for them. And I was like, what the fuck? Who does that? Who does that?
Things you forget. I remember all this stuff. Like, wow, crazy days, man. I remember. I don't know if this is like a good thing. It's going to make it sound like we're bad, because we weren't. We ended up a really good tight band. But I remember one of the sort of, as we were coming towards the end, going all the way down to London, to play a show. And the whole thing, if you remember, was just like a disaster. We got booked to play a place where we thought it was like a metal venue, and it was anything but. Yeah. And we ended up playing, I think it was like 2 people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Literally, we played a gig to 2 people, and we absolutely went for it, though, on stage. We still did that. It was like a half-hour gig,
Yeah.
But we went for it and we did the whole gig, and we just played it like we were playing, Wembley like that. That was the only way you can treat it. Really.
If people may say we were good, bad, or indifferent, and that's for history to fucking decide whichever way you want to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody could ever say that we didn't really, 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 really enjoy it. Didn't really, really, really throw everything we had into it. Even if we sucked, we were still really, really totally present when we played. I remember one show I had been beaten up the day before. The day before, I'd come away from a show.
I remember.
I've never told this story recorded before, but I was coming home from Stairways. It was with my wife, and at the time I would wear black t-shirt and stuff, and I had long hair, things. And
Punisher t-shirt.
Punisher t-shirt, which I still have. And the two guys jumped us. Me and the missus, and mainly focused on knocking 7 bells out of me, and the missus had to kind of go, a little bit away to get to a phone to ring an ambulances before mobile phones.
Yeah.
To kind of get, and she said she'd look back and they're knocking fucking 7 kinds of shit at me, but she's got to ring the police, and the phone box is a couple of seconds away. I can't imagine how difficult that would have been. And then apparently they were beating me so hard that I had a metal chain that would kept my keys on. It was around, so they cut that in half. That was how much they were hitting me with. So I was completely fucked. I remember going to the hospital, waking up in the hospital. They were like, "You okay?" and blah blah blah.
And Lynn, your wife, phoning me.
Yeah.
When you went home, I came round to yours and saw you lying on the floor, and literally seconds later, did an ambulance come? Did it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I remember the aftermath. It was terrible.
And then the next day was the show, and I had the guy in the hospital. The doctor was like, "You should just go home and do fucking nothing now. You should do nothing." And I remember having the band on, the hospital band, and going. I was at the Picket, I think, and going, "Fucking, I'm playing the show." And played the show. I still had bruises and stuff, and fucking hell, a totally bad idea to do that. But I remember playing the show because I was like, I'm not disappointing anybody that wants to come and see us, and I'm not. Every show, we were a show must go on. Very much we were like, you've got to always play.
Yeah.
Never can cancel. Never can do any of that shit. If something doesn't work, get past it. Just fix it and move on. We were very much like that. There was no divas about us at all. We just got the job done each time we played.
Yeah, we just got on with it. I remember you doing that gig actually with the hospital band on. I remember that.
Yeah. Because I was just like, fuck you, I'm still doing it. This was metal then. There was very much a divide. If you wore a Slipknot t-shirt, you were going to get hurt. You know what I mean? This was pre Sophie Lancaster and people being singled out for listening to metal and stuff and beaten up and stuff and worse. This was prevalent then. Now it's you could wear a Slipknot t-shirt and no one's going to say not look twice at you. But back then you had to answer for it. You had to you might get in a fight. You couldn't walk around the local high street and not be getting some trouble. You know what I mean? Someone, a scally would have a go. It was tough. It was a tough time. Very tough.
Yeah. And this was only about 20 years ago, wasn't it? I don't think people realise sometimes. People now who were in bands or who were 18, 20. But back then it was just 20 years ago. It was completely different to what it is now. Well, there's not really much of a metal scene sort of in a lot of places now. It's sort of very well. You know more about it than me, obviously, but it seems to be all.
I want to see now when I go to the shows is to see a lot of bands now who I think technically are much better than where we are at that stage, because they've got a lot more resources now. It's easier to get better. It's easier for me to find guitar videos and stuff. I had to look. There was no internet. So I think the quality of the musicianship has probably improved now, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff that we had. I'm seeing a lot of bands who share our back then of that DIY atmosphere. There's a lot of that still about. It's still very much there, but they see I think some bands see all the amount of different things you can do and go on Instagram and YouTube and all that. They see that as maybe too much information to kind of get hold of, because we didn't have that. It was being drip fed to us any chance. It was like, okay, you can do this. We jumped on everything because there's so much now. You kind of almost like got an embarrassment of riches. You know, there's almost too much stuff to concentrate on. It can be quite overwhelming for a young band now. Like, but I see a lot of the energy that we had in bands I see now on the metal scene. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, but there can't be as many, you know, especially around where we live. There used to be like literally dozens of venues to play, and they just closed down one by one.
There's definitely less venues, yeah.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem that bands can particularly, you know, thrive anymore because there's nowhere to play. And does that maybe make people not even want to start a band now? Because if they do, it's like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, and we talk about this on the show a lot, is a lot of people now start out their band and decide what genre they are before they even start the band. You're going, okay, we're a punk band, and you're like, okay, and start. We didn't really have that. We kind of let it grow into whatever it was. We ended up being the rock and metal band, like, but we kind of let it grow to what it naturally would be. And there's a lot more kind of pre-thought, I think, when a band starts than we had. We were just like, let's just get 4 guys in a room and see what happens. You know, that was how we worked it. Now there's a lot more selection and there's a lot more thought into it. It's like, shall we do it? Can we do this? Whereas we were like, fuck, you can play the bass, sound, you can join our band. There was no list of stuff, if you know what I mean. There's no like checklist of stuff you had to do. You just went and did it. Now there's a bit more of a kind of like, oh, you've got a band, well, you have to have a website. You've got a band, you have to have Facebook and social media, you know, kind of profiles and stuff like that. And you have to have this like almost checklist of stuff now before you even fucking put out an album. And we didn't have that. We just kind of were like, just get it done. Just keep going and get it done, you know.
Yeah. We recorded all our demos on like, you know, tapes on like 4-track tape machines and stuff. Yeah. And now it's just like pretty much everybody's got like a home studio in the bedroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we could now write and record a song and put it out there by the end of tonight. Easy. Yeah.
Over the internet, like
over the internet without never meeting. Like, you know, back then you had to meet people. We had to write songs. Like, you know what I mean, you had to sit down and kind of like work it out and figure out how the song was going. And it's not me being like kind of old man going like, oh, we're back in my day we had to do that. It's just, it's interesting to see the difference between the 20 years is put into the formation of bands and stuff, and how the expectations that go on a band, you know.
Yeah.
And how it changed.
Well, it's weird. I can never decide are things better or are they worse, because it's like when I get to the end of my life, I think I'd rather look back and have it how we had it, where it was more sort of physical and hands-on, if you like, and being in the same room and blah blah blah. Well, exactly what we talked about. Whereas a lot of bands now, it's kind of like you say, it's all, if you haven't got like a screen to look at, if it's not, you know, Facebook or I don't know, whatever. And it was just because there was none of that back then. I think I'd rather basically have it how we had it, because it would just seem, I think that the key is, it just seemed back then it was just more fun. And I think if you could compare it to a band now, I think we had a lot more fun.
Well, now you can see every facet of a band. You can see how many people listen to that band, how old they are, where they're from, what else they're listening to, how much money that stream generates in a week, how much, you know, the tickets are, how often they play, what's their most listened to song. You can find out all of these detailed information about a band, and realistically, that's all that's there for, is for commerciality reasons and for them to sell stuff. That's what that information is there for. We didn't have that. The way we knew our most popular song is the crowd went mental for that song, and we were like, okay, that's the most popular song. You know, there was very little way back then of getting money for what you did. There's not too many ways now to do it, but there was no way of doing that. You had to get out there and meet the people face to face, and that's something that I always try and work with new bands. And I'm like, you know, get out there, start meeting the fans, you know, there's obviously stuff you've got to be doing online, but you should also be out there generating, and you should be working on being a great live band. You know, that's what I want to see. You know.
Yeah, totally. It's, I mean, God, how old are we sounding here? Like,
oh, I know I'm old, yeah. But I mean, it's like most things. It's how you see it. You can see it's like all this new technology and the new things that have come up and the new way bands have kind of adopted that. You can see it as well. There's so many avenues you can do. It's not worth following anyway. It's too hard. There's too much out there. Or you can see it as a wealth of opportunity. As a lot of the bands that I know now, I've seen it that way, where they're like, well, we've got 5 or 6 different channels. We earn money through doing this. We talk to our fans on this. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant to bet. The good sides of it, the positives from it are very, very positive. They're ace. You know, I think whatever, you could go back 30 years, you could go back 40 years, and there's always going to be a downside to when you bring your band out. There's always downsides to it, you know. But there's also, it's the upside's got to be embraced a little bit, like, you know. And that's why I always say to bands, you know, look at everything, because you don't know what's going to catch particular fire. You know, you might find that, you know, doing a Twitch stream is your thing or SoundCloud is your thing. And I think if I was starting out a band now, I would properly jump on all those things. And there's a lot, and it's time consuming, but I would still jump on all of them and with gusto, you know what I mean? Still have a go at it. And I think that's all I would definitely recommend to any bands, is to, you know, don't be afraid of all these new things, because when taking it from someone who didn't have those things, they're a fucking godsend and a blessing and must be embraced, like, you know.
Yeah. Well, do you know what, though? It's funny you're saying that, because, like, I mean, I'm actually still in a band at the minute. I mean, I'm in a few duos, and I'm actually in a 5-piece band, but it's more sort of, it's like sort of pop rock sort of thing. Now, we're all over the internet with, you know, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, every conceivable thing you can think of, SoundCloud, you know, Spotify, everything. But and it's all fantastic, and we're all over it, and it's got to be done, and you get loads of followers and all this type of thing. But the fact remains, which I can never seem to, you know, get away from, is that there's just nowhere to play. I mean, there is, but there's not an abundance. It's like years ago, we couldn't go practically to, you know, within a mile, and there wasn't a venue somewhere to play. They were just everywhere, and most of the time they were just sort of hidden little gems in some club you wouldn't even know was there, but they ran some like mad club on a Wednesday night or something, and they've either disappeared, been knocked down, whatever. But it's like now, it's like, unless you're, I don't necessarily know what it's like on the metal scene, but in like the sort of, you know, the pop rock sort of mainstream, if you like, sort of band route, it's like, if you're not playing covers in pubs, which is great, don't get me wrong, so obviously I make my living playing, you know, covers and stuff, and I love it. But for original music bands who just want to do their own music, there's hardly anywhere that I know of, because I do try and follow it, but there's not many places to.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think it's because now a lot of people are just kind of like, well, why do I have to go to a music venue and like actually, you know, see a band when I can just listen to them on YouTube or, you know, download the track on Spotify? But what they're not getting is the fact that they're missing out on the experience of just like, I don't really know many people who go to unsigned gigs anymore. I know people who go to gigs, like who, you know, I've just been to see like, you know, I don't know, Coldplay, Metallica, or Jerry Cinnamon, or anybody. They've been to see, so, you know, and that's fantastic. But there doesn't really seem to be anywhere just playing or unsigned, you know, bands playing their own stuff, and a want of people to go and see them. Because if you remember, like when we first started out, and we were the places we were playing, you'd have dozens of people there who didn't know you. They just came because there was they were like, well, there's like a 3-piece band showcase of 3 bands nobody's heard of, playing half-hour set of their own stuff. So we've come along just to like check them all out, and it's like, and that was like so rife. But it's like now, it just doesn't happen. As far as I can tell, it just doesn't happen.
I kind of put forward a few times on the show that I think one of the things that maybe has happened is we've trained people to look for new music and kind of search for new music, we've trained them in a different way now. So it used to be like the only way you could kind of go and see a band and see new music, go out and do the work. And we've kind of made it so easy now that people don't want to go out and do the work and go find these bands and sit through a band's set. And they don't want to do that. Like I definitely think we've reduced listening habits, and we've reduced like how long you give a song because of the internet and because of something like YouTube. A song gets maybe 10 seconds, and if it isn't the best thing in the world, it gets skipped. And that's obviously translating to a live thing where it's like, I'm not going to invest my money because it could be shit. You know, it could be really poor, and it's that whole risk thing. And the only way we fight that as musicians and artists is make the quality of it so good that it's undeniable that you have to go and see it. Make everything an event that you have to go and see. You know.
Well, that is the other thing, is that the money aspect is like, if you stream something on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, and it's free, and that's great. That's the only thing. Like years ago, I mean, obviously prices are different 20 years ago to what they are now. But obviously that is a factor where you have to go to music venues, you have to pay to get in. Yeah, but I think that the thing is a lot of the time, like you'd never hear someone like years ago say, "Oh, I went to I don't know, the Zanzibar in Liverpool, or you know, the Iron Door in Birkenhead," and like you'd never hear them say like, "Oh, I had a terrible night." It was always like, well, it was like a £5 to get in. You know, I got me drinks, I got drunk, I had a brilliant night, and it was just, I met loads of people, and I got the band give me a load of CDs, and I made loads of new friends, and that's all everybody ever said. It was just a huge network of, you know, of bands, and that's the other thing, bands who knew each other and would help each other, and we'd be like, "Oh, your band's dead good. Would you come and support us in Manchester next week? And then we'll support you, blah, blah, blah. Here's one of our CDs, and here's one of our CDs." And, you know, and your circle of sort of friends was like, your physical friends before Facebook was absolutely huge. And now it's more like you've got a huge circle of friends, but half of them are just, you haven't even met them. This is just, you know, people who are downloading your music or Facebook or whatever. But if you think how many people you knew back then, to like who were musicians and club owners and blah 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 blah, but it just seems to be more, it's all just literally done through the internet now. It's a bit of it's a shame really, like the way it's gone. But like you say, I suppose there's pros and cons to the both really. Like
maybe the internet has thrown up a perspex sheet between the audience and the bands, where it looks like you can see more bands because it's highlighting them, but you can't actually get to them physically. You know, there's probably some kind of deep philosophical sort of thing to that. Like, I think, you know, I always try and be positive with the show, and I think that the times are changing. They will. 20 years down the line, there'll be another set of kids making bands and stuff like that, and they'll have the different challenges that we had now. Like, but I still look back on the time with the first band, and just so you know, the first and only band that I've ever been in, you know, playing live and stuff like that. I always look back on it fondly, because one of the things that should be a band is it should be an experience as well. It should be something that you experience with your friends. You kind of it's a part of that whole process, I think. What was it? Do you remember what the biggest show was we played? Do you remember what it was?
You mean with
I don't know, crowd or like venue or whatever?
Oh God. I don't know. I mean, we play. I think it was probably the which has now been knocked down. It's not even there. The Hotel Victoria in New Brighton, which I remember it used to do. I'm sure it was there on a Thursday, and then they moved it to a Saturday. Yeah. And if you remember, you could get in any age. Any age could get in. They sold alcohol. Obviously, they wouldn't sell alcohol to the under 18s. So any age could get in. And I remember, I've got a photograph somewhere, which I was looking at not so long ago, actually. So I've been going through stuff in lockdown. And I found a photograph, and there's just a sea of people. Like, you know, there's probably, I mean, I say it was like thousands, but there was probably 250 people. And the room wasn't that big. And it's just a sea of people, and we're just like a little band at the front playing. And although that might not be like playing in front of 50,000 people, you playing in a room. So, well, you remember what it was like a couple of 250 people who were well into it, and they're all dancing and going mad. is like amazing. And although that might have not been the biggest crowd we played to, because we did all sorts of festivals. We did the May Day Festival in up in Wallasey, and that was 1,000 people there, a couple of thousand, stuff like that. But I think capacity size and in comparison to the room and all that, doing that, and like you said, the key as well, being there on stage with your friends and just enjoying it. That was, I think, probably, we did a few gigs like that in there, but I think they were some of the best feedback and most enjoyable. And yet it's just like it was never, you drive past now, there's nothing there. People wouldn't have even known it was there.
Lost the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and you know, you go in there on a Saturday night and it was rammed with you know, hundreds of people, and you know, adults who were drunk and kids dancing around like lunatics, and it was just amazing. But it just doesn't seem to be places like that anymore. There's places which are great, don't get me wrong, clubs and all sorts of stuff. But I'm talking about, like, you know, live music venues, obviously. Mm-hmm. I mean, you obviously follow it all more than me, so I don't know how do you sort of?
It's now. There are places. There's less places. That's true, but those places that exist now are really focused on it. Really focused on getting new music in and things that people want to see, and all ages shows and stuff like that. And they're really kind of set up for that, like, they're really kind of that in mind. But there's less. There's definitely less, and it's a sad trend that will probably continue. I often joke on the show that, like, you know, if you don't go out and support live music, it will be like you'll talk about it to your grandkids, where you're like, oh, you used to be able to go and see a band, what, live and in flesh? Yeah, and they play in front of you with instruments. And I, what? That's amazing. You know, we probably will get to that stage. Like, it's horrible. Yeah. Certainly with the pandemic as well, where people are now taking in music differently as well now, and live streaming's a thing and all the rest of it. It's like, it's interesting. It's nice to, like, be able to say I was from a time before that, because now I really embrace it and really know just how fucking important it is. And that's why I'm always banging that drum, saying it's important to support live bands and live music, because I've seen what it's like when it's great, you know, and it is now. And there's certainly some great stuff going on. It is by no means dead at all, or it's got problems, but I think it's always had problems. But it's still, like, there's still young bands getting it done out there. Like, it's still pretty what's the word? Pretty healthy, I would say. It's still pretty healthy. It's just moved into its individual niches now, like.
Yeah, do you know what's funny? I remember at one point, like in our hometown, I remember we had, I think it was 5 venues practically on one street. We played all of them, because if you remember, we had Revolver, we had the Hotel California, the Boot Hill Saloon, Stairways, the Iron Door, and pre the Iron Door was the Void and the Casbah. Yeah. And then you had the Full Moon Club, which was in Birkenhead Park. And that was just within like, what, a mile of each other?
Stone's throw of each of them, yeah.
Yeah, and literally every single one of them have gone. Everyone. I think the Full Moon Club's reopened in Birkenhead Park. I think someone's sort of, you know, reopened that one, like, which is great. But they've literally all gone. It's just crazy. Like, but there's the obviously you got Molly's Chambers, which is amazing, like, which is just down the road, which is kind of like all them sort of into one now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is a great venue, like. But like you say, there's definitely it has all, it's changed so much now. It's just it's crazy. I don't really know how I feel about bands now. Do I envy bands just starting out or not?
It's just a different set of problems, isn't it? They've still got problems. It's just that now their problems is how can I get more views? How can I get more likes? It just changes the problem, doesn't it? The problems are still, and it probably always will be there. It just becomes a different game, you know. Whereas we spend 2 hours fly posting somewhere, someone will now spend 2 hours doing a live stream or a Q&A or an Ask Me Anything and that type of thing, you know. So I think the problems don't lessen or grow. I think they just change the form, you know. I think that's what happens now, and and that's kind of, I think, that's okay. That's how it should be. I don't think it gets harder. I don't think it gets easier. I think it just changes form and knowing that it changes form and the problems are going to change like that, that's why I say to people, everybody, you should embrace all the different opportunities you can have as a band, because you know how long some of them are going to be around or how they're going to change,
So it's funny actually, because like I say, there's pros and cons to both. I've just remembered me and Dave, Dave Kinder, our old bass player. I still work with him till today. We were talking about this the other week, and when we were in when we were in Flag Smasher, you and me wrote a song called The Punisher.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing tune. Like, I remember the day you came in with this riff, and you said, "I've got this riff," and you played it, and we were like, "Jesus Christ, what's that?" And you were like, "It's called The Punisher." It's like, right. And then I think you and me went off and just like wrote words to it, and like, anyway, we had the idea of it was about a year or two before. I can't remember the name of the production company who were actually releasing the Thomas J. and John Travolta version of the movie version of The Punisher, and we were like, we've got to get this to them. We've got to get it to them. If you've got to get it on the soundtrack, And it's like we just could not. I remember we could not find out like where to send it, because it was like we were just trying everything, like every address. There was just no one. We couldn't find out anything, and like there was internet then, but it was much more sort of in its infancy than it is now. That this was like pre-Facebook and pre-YouTube and all these I think. But now probably it would have been a lot easier to maybe contact
you probably
them.
could. You would have just contacted them via Twitter.
Just like the song.
Which probably makes it worse, because everybody could do it. You'd have a billion people going, okay, I'll do you. But yeah, you're right. There's more accessibility now, for good or bad. There's more accessibility. You could directly message someone famous or someone important now. You can do that totally,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that is that. Like I said, I suppose there's pros and cons to both eras, if you want to put it like that. Really, like I suppose you obviously you know more about this than me, because you're dealing with this all the time, like, aren't you?
Yeah. The problems just change. The application should stay the same. You should still, good live bands are always going to be good. If you're a good live band, you're a good band. You should always interact with your fans. You should always listen to your fans. You should use every avenue that you can to get your music out there. Well, listen, we've got nearly an hour.
Really? Wow.
It's like that was just an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, we should get we've got to get Dave back on the show again, like, because it's been a nice walk down memory lane and sort of remember some of those mad. We've got a billion stories, these crazy stories that we can go through, but. That's been fun, man. I enjoyed this. Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. Like, thanks for coming on the show, Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, David Robinson.
Thanks, man. Cheers. I enjoyed it, like, and I'll come back anytime you want.
That was talking to David Robinson, my good friend Dave. Really good conversation. We'll probably get him on the show again, as we will a lot of people. There's just not enough time sometimes to do it. We try and keep it around an hour, 2 hours. Once again, thanks for listening. All the usual stuff applies. Subscribe on the relevant social medias that you use. Try and suggest this to other people who may enjoy it too. Once again, thanks for listening, and I will see you at the show.